Well, Madam Chairman, I thank you. I look forward to working with you, specifically this session of Congress. I'm grateful to my colleagues, maybe a little premature than what the timing had, that we'll organize at some point today, and hopefully I will be the ranking member of this committee. This committee has a great history of bipartisanship, and I expect that that will continue. Patty Murray and I have a history of working together to run the Veterans Affairs Committee. So this is not new for the two of us, and I look forward to continuing to build on the relationship we already have. My main priority for this committee is health care. We should all, senators, staff, and the administration, anticipate spending more time than we can imagine today on the response to COVID-19, and to make sure that we're better prepared for the next one. This includes looking at supply chains and making sure that we make in the United States what we need, not through burdensome requirements, but through incentives. We also need to work to make sure the United States research enterprise is aware of and better prepared for the threats of our enemies. We need to continue to prioritize and enable and incentivizing private sector innovation. We've seen what the private sector can do. A vaccine developed and authorized less than a year after a novel virus was discovered should become the norm and not the exception. FDA has shown incredible speed and flexibility, and the FDA user fee reauthorization discussion later this Congress is a good chance to examine how the speed and flexibility can help in the fight against serious conditions with no treatments that exist today. If we can speed bureaucracy up and not abandon the gold standard of safety and efficacy, with as much money as the FDA already has, I want to know why we can't have that be the new baseline expectations. And we'll need to conduct vigorous oversight. While I'm sure that many of my Democratic friends will just want to blame the last administration for every problem that exists, and we know they made their share of mistakes, but we also need to dig deeper into the laws and agencies that we created to see what works and what needs to be fixed. For example, if it wasn't for cultural arrogance of the bureaucracy at the CDC, we might have had diagnostic tests a lot sooner than we did in this country. We need to fix the problem that's been exposed, not just blame the last group that were here. I hope to be able to be a partner in getting President Biden's cabinet quickly operational with fair, qualified candidates who have submitted the necessary paperwork and forms for the Office of Government Ethics in the time frame that Senator Murray and his colleagues requested of President Trump's nominees. We won't always agree on which nominees meet these goals, and I think you'll see the differences in who we've asked this week and who's testifying before us next week. Now, turning to Dr. Cardona, welcome. Welcome to you, to your wife Marissa, to your children who are in the annex behind us, and I am told that they're going to come out when you start your testimony. I don't want them to miss it live and in person, and we can adhere to the separation guidelines and have them over there. I also want to welcome your parents, who I understand didn't make the trip because of COVID, but they'll be watching this on TV. Your entire family, I know, is proud of this nomination, and the fact that you've been asked to lead the Department of Education at a very challenging time is daunting for anybody. You've had a meteoric rise from a classroom teacher to a principal to a superintendent from a small state of Connecticut. You should be proud of that, and I'm glad the President has nominated you for this position. Millions of children are stuck at home trying to learn. Parents are at their wits' end, and the adults running public schools across the country are failing to actually follow the science and open schools safely. CDC experts just released a paper in the Journal of American Medical Association on January 26 that said this, and I quote, "The preponderance of available evidence from the fall school semester has been reassuring in as far as the type of rapid spread that was frequently observed in congregate living facilities or high-density work sites has not been reported in an education setting in schools, unquote. That says to me that we should be seriously talking about reopening schools as quickly as possible. That's what the science tells us, and quite frankly, that's what students and parents need. The CDC experts went on to say, and I quote, "All recommended mitigation measures in schools must continue, requiring universal face mask use, increasing physical distancing by de-densifying classrooms and common areas, using hybrid attendance models when needed to limit the number of contacts and prevent crowding, increasing room ventilation and expanding screening testing to rapidly identify and isolate asymptomatic infected individuals." In the 5 COVID bills we've passed last year, Congress has provided over $67 billion for K through 12 and $36 billion for higher education. That's in addition to the regular appropriated dollars for these activities, and that's also on top of the hundreds of billions of dollars from state and local sources. We need schools to open safely and to stay open safely. While that was considered partisan and dangerous when some suggested it last year, since President Biden won and over 1 million vaccines from Operation Warp Speed being delivered daily, more folks have changed their tune, and I welcome that change. COVID-19 related school closures have led to significant learning loss, and we need to get caught up and help all our students. But one-size-fits-all requirements from Washington will only further hurt the situation. So I hope that you'll refrain from the mistake so many have made of your predecessors, which is that just because you have a good idea, that doesn't mean everybody should follow it based upon the makeup of their school systems. Even school districts, each school district, college, university, community college, state, and community faces a different pandemic and a different circumstance. Trying to treat them as a monolith instead of providing flexible advice for states and localities to use, if applicable and useful, would be a mistake. I hope you'll follow the examples of Richard Riley and Lamar Alexander, both governors, and one, the former chair of this committee, and recognize that you can't run a nation's schools or colleges from Washington, D.C. But we can inspire them, and we can help them. Finally, we're going to have an adult conversation about academic testing for this school year. While we do need to know how much educational harm has happened, I'm not sure that the federal accountability system and existing state tests are the right thing at this moment. I understand the Department of Education sent a letter last week to chief state school officers saying the previous February 1st deadline for seeking waivers was being extended. However, it didn't set a new deadline. I hope that you and my colleagues in Senate are willing to engage in a conversation about whether we need to pause for 1 year the accountability and testing requirements as we grapple with the pandemic. I also want to caution you, and especially some of the staff that will show up at the department, that the law does not give you the authority to impose a bunch of conditions on states seeking waivers. Some of your predecessors thought that they could use the need for waivers to bully states into submission on some of their preferred policy objectives that weren't in the law. The law does not allow you to do that, or any Secretary of Education, and I hope, Commissioner, you'll respect those limitations. Let me turn to student loans for 1 minute. Last year, Congress acted to pause loan repayments for all borrowers as we grappled with coronavirus. Then the Trump administration, now the Biden administration, have extended the pause so borrowers have a certain certainty for a long time. But I'm not eager to see the Biden administration pursue dangerous and foolhardy proposals to simply forgive student loans. The claims that by some that Higher Education Act allows this would stretch the law beyond recognition. I hope that you and the White House don't pursue that. Instead, I invite you to work with Republicans and Democrats in Senate to pass legislation that dramatically simplifies student loan repayment options, allows borrowers to pay whatever they can reasonably afford, capped at 10% of their discretionary income, and have their loan forgiven after 20 years. This is bipartisan legislation that I've previously introduced with Senator Angus King, and I'm sure we'd be happy to work with the administration and you to pass this into law in the next 100 days. But I will oppose any effort to simply move debt from borrowers onto taxpayers. In conclusion, I plan to conduct rigorous oversight, especially on the response of COVID-19, and will ask fair but difficult and probing questions on the decisions that you make and the way the agency operates. You would expect that from an oversight committee. I will expect honest, complete, and timely answers. I hope you can commit to working with me on that. Commissioner Cardona, I expect by the end of this hearing, I'll be able to support your nomination. And I will encourage all of my colleagues on my side to support you as well, and to move as expeditiously to have you sworn in as the next Secretary of Education. I look forward to working with you. I thank the chair.